Welcome back to Yaffee Live. We are here on Talk Radio 102.3. Glad you've joined us today. I am Tennessee's voice of reason, Chattanooga's conservative conscience. Glad, like I said, glad you're here. And also glad that Brandon Lewis is here. He is the founder of the Tennessee Conservative, the best site that keeps up with what's going on in the General Assembly. And you can read it every day, TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Subscribe for free. It'll show up in your email inbox. Follow them on social media, all that good stuff. And you can subscribe to his podcast as well. And he usually posts this interview on his podcast. Brandon, how are you today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Good. Thanks for filling in for me a day last week. I know there were technical difficulties a lot last week, but
yeah, those are big shoes for a small man. So I did my best.
Oh, that's fun. That's funny. That's funny. All right. So we have a lot to talk about that you guys are covering. We've been talking about this pretty much every week since the start of the General Assembly. But let's get the latest on a collection of immigration bills that have advanced in the Tennessee legislature. I know you guys are covering that.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through these as quick as I can. We have one that prohibits illegal aliens from obtaining professional licenses, and those are things like medical, construction companies, etc. And the House companion bill made it through the committee process and will soon be on the House floor for a vote. There's a constitutional amendment specifying only U.S. citizens can vote, and this has made it through the Senate, which means that if it gets voted on again next year, it will be enshrined in our state constitution. Another one criminalizes illegal immigrants found who have a final deportation order. It passed the Senate along party lines, and the House has already passed a version of the bill. Another one gingerly recommends that election administrators can, not must, use the SAVE database to verify citizenship. This passed the Senate and has already passed the House. Another one upgrades criminal offenses committed by agents of foreign adversaries. This one is really good. HB 2018 requires that the sheriff's office must participate in the 287G program to hold illegal aliens longer. That will help get a lot of them off the street. That's made it through the House, and it's going to the Senate. I assume it will pass. One that requires state and local governments to verify that somebody that's going to work for the government is here legally, passed the House. The Senate version is waiting for a vote. And there's another one that expands prohibitions on lands by foreign adversaries, one that keeps them from operating commercial vehicles, and finally requires judges to cooperate with federal authorities. And so all of these things are moving. Some of these are kind of picayune small bills that won't make a big difference in what we see in a quality of life standpoint in here in Tennessee, but they are moving in a more positive direction on this issue than I've ever seen them do before.
Yeah, it's been kind of a theme for us the past few times we've talked that they're actually doing something about illegal immigration in the state. Maybe some of it's not as good as we would have liked, but better than the past. So,
yes.
I mean,
yes.
Some optimism there. Something you kind of mentioned there, but you have a story on it, how sneaky lobbyists convince RINOs to go against public interests. I have a feeling this is one you're pretty passionate about, knowing you, but tell me about it.
Essentially, it goes like this. Michelle Renault had a very simple bill to get fluoride out of the water. And the argument has been like it's good for your teeth, right? Well, preparation H is good for your bottom, but we don't put it in our drinking order, and it just doesn't make any sense. And people don't have any choice. Like it comes out of your tap. If you don't want it in there, you can either get a expensive filtration center or system, or you just have to drink it. And essentially, these lobbyists got on a call that got leaked to our publication, and they said that Michelle Renault had the electorate, that she had the message, that she was passing many bills that are in line with the MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again movement.
Yeah, it's been big for her.
Yeah, and that this is what people in Tennessee want. And so they got on and talked about how they had convinced Paige Wally, the waffling Paige Wally, who, if a stiff breeze blows, you never know which way he's going to vote. And it's usually not conservative. And shockingly got Bobby Harshbarger and Shane Reeves, has always had a bad voting record, so that's no surprise, to kill the legislation with the Democrats. And essentially, they said, what we're going to do is, take this bill and shuffle it to a different committee and make it to where instead of having this for our entire state, which is what Republican primary voters want, instead to push it down to state and local government so they can go out and play whack-a-mole as a lobbyist group from municipality to municipality to county and different water boards. And so you see this all the time where the lobbyists have more pull up in Nashville than the constituents because they grease the palms of the elected officials. And because they're too lazy to think about these things, they rely upon them and the corporate interests that back them. So I'm sure that the employers of these lobbyists are not very excited that this got leaked and they get exposed for the type of people that they are working against public interest. But it is business as usual up in Nashville.
I do have to ask, what lobbyist was against it? Is it the dental lobby? Is it is there a
I am
fluoride
sh-
lobby?
I'm quite sure that it's a combination of two entities.
Okay.
Whoever's peddling bulk fluoride, like there's some
Okay.
salesperson driving around in a car right now who is selling this to different water treatment facilities, and then likely, and this is probably one of the most insidious things that we have, and they've tried to bring legislation before, and that's where people that are employed by the government get paid your tax dollars from government agencies to lobby against your interest. And this is one of the
Mhm.
biggest problems. Most of the time, when a lot of conservative bills get killed, they send state employees and they send government employees and government paid lobbyists up to lobby against the interest of Tennesseans. And more often than not, the RINOs go along with it. It amazes me because guess what? The lobbyists are organized. They write the checks that pay the campaign bills, and often people out and just living their lives don't even know that this stuff is happening.
Speaking with Brandon Lewis, he is with the Tennessee Conservative, going through some of the big stories they have been covering this week. Kind of on a similar note, if we're talking about the Maha movement, I see here Tennessee Senate passes a bill ordering a study on the impact of ultra processed foods in the school meal programs. So talk about this a little bit.
Yes, I can. I'm gonna put on my Nostradamus hat and tell you what the study's gonna say. We have a bunch of overweight, underactive kids that are being
Hmm.
fed junk in our schools with ultra high processed carbs, very little protein, and very little fruits and vegetables because it saves money.
Yeah.
And the food companies of the world, they're three or four steps up above prison food, are being served to kids. And if we've got 13 years with these kids, we really need to make sure that we teach them how to eat healthy, at least while they're in school hours. And so Janice Bowling asked the Tennessee Advisory Commission on intergovernmental relations to do this study, and mainly because they have existing resources they can use to do the study without it having a fiscal note. So it will be interesting to see what came in. And this is so funny. Senator Todd Gardenhire was the only no vote. This is the same guy, which is very perplexing, that wanted to put a tax on sugary drinks in Tennessee,
Oh, huh.
and things of that nature. So I'm like, I don't understand. Like if he likes to
Yeah.
tax the junk food and let people eat it, but he doesn't want to take it out of their mouth. So he is an odd duck. And whenever you can find him caucusing with the Democrats just about as much as you can find him caucusing with the Republicans when things really matter.
I'm kind of surprised Democrats are not more on board unless it's just a Trump derangement syndrome thing. Because, I mean, it was a few years ago, Michelle Obama, when she was first lady, was pushing healthier meals in schools. I remember that. Now, at the time, a lot of Republicans were against that. But you would think now, then, if both sides agree we should have healthier meals in schools, all of a sudden the Democrats are against it. I know it's politics as usual, but it's kind of strange to me when you think about it.
It's just the tribal nature of whose message it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I get tired of seeing these memes all the time. It's almost like, but look what you did. But look what you did. Like, I mean, you can find
Yeah. What about it?
evidence of, yeah, what aboutism? You can find evidence of hypocrisy on both sides all the time. And they change their tune depending on who's bringing it and what the political is. And often, their job is just to be in opposition to the other party. And so it is what it is. But often, I think gridlock is helpful in government
Mhm.
sometimes because it makes it, you know, suck less longer because they can break fewer
Yeah.
things less fast. So who knows? It's very surprising.
I say that a lot about the federal government. Sometimes I like gridlock because it's less of them taking our money and our liberty away, and they're good to like.
Exactly. Yes.
But of course, now they're doing that with Department of Homeland Security, and it's like, well, that's kind of one area we should fund. Like, it just shows a lack of priorities and kind of how a lot of that works. So that's interesting. Here's something that I definitely support. Want to get your take on it. Governor Lee is going to sign a bill expanding Tennessee law allowing the death penalty for child rape. And of course, this is something similar to what was passed in Florida. I know Alabama's working on passing something as well. It will definitely be challenged in the courts, goes against a prior Supreme Court ruling. This is kind of similar, right, to Roe v. Wade, where at the time they passed it, it was an attempt to like get it back to the Supreme Court to anti-abortion law. It's kind of similar to that, right?
Believe so. The what they basically have said now, and this was brought by Representative Greg Martin out of Hickson, is that if you are caught with aggravated rape of a child under 4 years old, reading this is actually kind of painful. If you hold a position of trust over the victim, if you're a registered sex offender at the time, if the victim was mentally or physically defective or helpless, incest, felony or
Yeah.
misdemeanor conviction,
There was
recording
a
it,
lot on that list, I remember.
sedating intoxicants, and it goes on and on.
Mhm.
And so basically gives, if these conditions are present, the judge has the leeway to ask for the death penalty. I think one interesting thing is that no Republicans voted against it, but you had 4 no votes from Democrats. I don't know that they have I did not know how strong the child rape lobby was. Apparently strong enough to get 4 people, and then 8 more Democrats for a total of 12 voted not present, which is the same as the coward's way out. Voting not present is the same as voting against the bill. It ends up getting you in the same place, and so that's where that stands.
Yeah, you would think we would get bipartisan support on something like that when you're naming all those crimes, and we can't even do that. Although it's really because there are just some people against the death penalty. Doesn't matter what it's
Yeah.
for. They just don't like the death penalty at all. So that's why they don't support it, right?
Well, I think enforcement should be swift, and in my opinion, should be public. I think a lot of the things that we used to do in our society relative to administering justice with a little bit of pomp, circumstance, and flair is a great deterrent. And so much of this
Mm.
stuff, as we know, somebody does something like this in 1988 and they get put to death in 2027.
Right.
Like, how much of a deterrent is it if the process takes 30 years to grind down on you? And so I would like to, yeah, I think that's something that should be put in place. I don't, but I mean, just because of, I mean, that person's life is going to be irredeemably damaged. And
Right.
I think that we need to protect the innocent in our community. So I would be for it, but I do understand the argument to a degree.
Last thing I want to talk about, only about a minute left here, but this is a pretty important one. A conservative-backed party affiliation bill takes next legislative step in the Tennessee House. This is something you have fought for a lot, and it seems like it always, just doesn't make it, doesn't get through. But what do you think?
Well, Chris Todd has worked real hard on this bill, and it is placed behind the budget by the House Finance Ways and Means Committee. But that always happens if there's a fiscal note attached. And essentially, you have to register for party affiliation 30 days before the election. And when you go to vote the next time in Tennessee, if for those of you listening, whichever ballot you pull in the primary will be your declared primary. And so then you will be registered as whichever primary you vote for. And if you don't indicate or don't assign yourself to a party, then you can't vote in any party's primaries. And so he believes that there will be the budget for it and doesn't think there will be an issue. So we're just kind of relying on Chris's intel there. This is something that the party has pushed for 2 decades now, and it has been constantly killed not by Democrats but Republicans. So it's good to see this thing inching toward the finish line. What will happen next is hard to tell. There have been a couple of people that worry that this takes the party affiliation process out of the hands of the party and puts it into state government, and the party's a private organization, which is a longer conversation than what we have time for.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's an interesting point. Although the private organization is why I think it should be up to the party who gets to vote in the primary. Then,
Yeah.
because they are a private organization, they should be able to choose to do that if they want to. So it kind of goes
Yeah,
both
so
ways, I
this,
think.
so far it seems that this is in alignment with what the state executive committee wanted. Although not every state executive committee thinks that this is the way to go. David Queen argued, who's our SEC member who will be up for the ballot in August, that Democrats should be voting in Republican primaries. He's up for election. A lot of people don't, you'll see that
Mm,
on your ballot when you go to vote if you're in Bo Watson's district.
right.
And so you have a lot of old mainstream RINOs that think that this is a good idea. And Mr. Queen even recently voted not to affirm that we should have only Republicans, voted against it when he had an opportunity in
Oh,
the
wow.
CEC meeting here. So it's not just that he talks about it, he's voted against it. And
Right.
so we just find these situations finally, Yaffee, where people they quote unquote vote their conscience instead of vote their constituency, and that's why
Mm.
constituents need to make sure they select people that will actually vote with their views and not whatever happens to be in their mind at the time.
Brandon Lewis with the Tennessee Conservative. Read his stuff, TennesseeConservativeNews.com. Brandon, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next week.
Later, Yaffee.